All right, so I'm dropping this video because I'm answering a few questions. When more than a few, I probably got like 10 or 12 DMs kind of asking similar questions, a few comments on my YouTube video that I posted, I guess like almost 2 weeks now, or maybe 2 weeks now. I basically made an entire video breaking down my entire template and going through every single track, every single group, plugin, but yet people are still asking me for a download link to the template, which is fine. Like I said, I made an entire video on it, so I'm not trying to hide anything or anything like that. I'm using the same stuff that the pros do. It's just my own workflow. So I am willing to give it away, a download link, I guess. But if I can get to 2,000 followers on Instagram, so if you follow me on Instagram, I'll follow you back. I've been following everybody that's been following me back from those videos and stuff. So subscribe to my channel if you want. But if you want the link, if I can hit 2,000 followers on Instagram, I'm at 1,300 right now, then I will absolutely give away my template as a download or whatever for people that were asking, which was quite a few people, pretty much every person that followed me on Instagram, and then a few comments on here on YouTube. So if I can get to 2,000 followers on Instagram, then I will absolutely post a link, and yeah, everybody can have access to it and stuff like that. So obviously it's an hour-long video, and I would assume people like to skip around to the parts that they are looking for. So it seems like a lot of people have kind of skipped over, or maybe also I didn't explain clear enough that I do use this template as my recording and mixing template. So instead of replying to a bunch of people answering basically the same questions, I just thought I would do another walkthrough through my video. This one won't be as long, but I'm just going to explain and, yeah, like I said, try to answer as best as I can with the questions that were being asked, if that makes sense. So the first question, which I've already just answered, is yes, this is my recording and mixing template. I just think that it works better for me. I just don't like the idea for me personally of having a separate mixing and recording template. I know people like for example, like someone like Baines. If you know him, he's Young Thug's engineer. As far as I know, he still has his mostly his mixing template within his recording template. Obviously, I could be totally wrong, and he could have switched things up because so maybe things are different for him. But that was kind of one of the people that inspired me, I guess, to kind of sort of go all in with having both my templates in one. I've already always kind of been working like that, but I was just like, man, is there like an easier way I could be doing this or whatever the case is? So after I found out that that's kind of pretty much what he does, I just went ahead and, like I said, went all in. So yeah, I do use my template for both recording and mixing. It doesn't mean that I'm absolutely sticking to all these plugins that are in here. For me, like definitely 95% of the time I am. You can obviously switch things out and stuff. So I would say like that's the number one thing is like also don't feel like because you have a template that you need to stick to that. Obviously, it's easy to fall into that because I know there's people that have way more plugins than I do, and like I said, I just stick with these because I know what I'm getting out of them. They're easy to use, and it allows me to move quickly. And if I need to like switch studios or whatever the case is, most studios or people that have recording studios at home or something have a lot of these plugins. So that's another main reason that, like I said, I like to have both and use the plugins that are built into my template. But for me, like I said, the main thing is definitely ease of use. I can go ahead and start putting a good solid mix or rough mix depending on what the situation is and what type of session it is. And I just have everything ready to go. So yeah, my recording and mixing, and I decided to monitor through my template so I can kind of do real time workflow stuff and kind of explain a little bit deeper on how I would use this template basically. So, for instance, another question or that I think I haven't really seen a lot of this technique on YouTube, and as far as from my the amount of videos and stuff that I've watched, I like to watch other people's stuff, and maybe that inspires me to do my own version of different ways that people work that I'm not seeing. And I don't see this workflow a lot. Like I said, I got this from UAD. I was a UA. I am. I just don't own an interface anymore, which I am working on getting another one. I just haven't done it yet. But I got this technique from Universal Audio. I'm so familiar with them. I've had an Apollo twin since the original Apollo twin. So back in 2013, 2014, when I was in college. And super familiar with the workflow and all that stuff. Got really used to it. Then obviously once I started working at a commercial recording studio, got introduced obviously HDX and DSP, which, like I've explained, it's the same, you know, thing as Apollo or as the Apollo workflow, Universal Audio workflow, where it has its own chips. You're monitoring through the plugin or recording through in real time, which brings me to the point of recording through plugins in real time. I think I can explain it a little bit better because there was a few comments that were confused about that workflow and stuff. So as an example, let's bypass this, right? This is what I'm monitoring through. This is just a straight up auxiliary. You can see that my microphone one, in this case for this example, is the input. The output of this auxiliary channel is going to my record track. So you do that. So you can see that we're recording in real time. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different because, like I said, the workflow is the same, but let me just explain HDX. Like I said, it's the same exact thing as the Apollo workflow. It's just that it's Pro Tools' version. So you can see we have this little Thunderbolt. You can see these plugins have this little green tab. That just means that we are using the DSP that's built into my interface. I'm using the Avid Carbon interface, aka HDX, chips that are built in. So that's the same thing as UAD, just two different companies doing the same exact thing. The only difference is that we are using plugins from Plugin Alliance, which answers another question that I just answered, is why I use specific plugins, because I want to take advantage of recording through them in real time. Luckily, Plugin Alliance makes great plugins, and they they provide Pro Tools HDX. You can see up here DSP versions. Same thing with this de-esser that I've talked about before, the Sonics, and then obviously most of, if not all, the official Avid licensed plugins are HDX as well. So same thing, monitoring through a DSP version of the Sonics de-esser. Because this is post this auxiliary track, let's just call it my recorded track, or if you're used to the Apollo workflow, this is essentially our console app. This is the input that's being monitored, being recorded through before it hits your DAW, right? That's what we're familiar with. So that's this part. The only difference is that we are not processing through these plugins. So hit record or recording in real time. If I start messing with this, you'll see that our waveform is not getting bigger because we're, adjusting the output fader on this plugin. So you can see we're only that proves that we're only monitoring through this plugin. So that's that, right? The reason I have this DSP plugin or this DSP channel set up, aka like the console app, is because that allows me to monitor through and actually record through these plugins, just like a UAD console. So now if we see the difference, we've turned these plugins back on. I start adjusting my gain. You can see that our waveform is being affected because we are actually affecting the signal on the way into our record track. So hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, it's the only difference is that we're doing it with an Avid interface versus a UAD interface. Any separate app, everything is built into Pro Tools, which is another reason that I switched over, because I just wanted to handle everything in Pro Tools. And so if we play it back now, you can see that our waveform so that was us adjusting the gain in real time. So that's why I have it set up. This is probably a little bit, maybe, I don't want to say it's redundant, but it's not necessary. But like I said, because I want to DS and monitor to see maybe what it would sound like if it was brighter, whatever the case is. I don't have to worry about these two plugins being printed because these are post. So hopefully that makes sense. There was a few people that had some questions about that and how to set it up. Like I said, if you use Pro Tools but you don't use a HDX interface, I'm not too familiar with how bad the latency would be with native. I know obviously at this point in time there is so many plugins that are zero latency or near to zero latency plugins. So still there's going to be like some sort of little bit of latency, but I'm not sure how that workflow would work. Maybe that is a video I can do. So if you want to see that, maybe I can do this natively and try to, maybe find a way to get the least amount of latency for people that are working on native systems. So meaning like if you're using like a Focusrite or anything that just doesn't have DSP, where you are monitoring through the interface instead of through your DAW of choice, then yeah, maybe that's a video I can make. So hopefully that makes sense. And then the next thing is how I start mixing tracks, or maybe as I'm recording through the session, how I'm bringing tracks down and stuff like that. So for me, let's say this is the take we wanted, and I'll try to go through some quick keys, so maybe that will be helpful too. So if you want to do copy, this is how I work. Let's say we wanted this take. I hit Command C. I'm using the semicolon to go down in our session. And if you hit P, that means up. The way I like to, or the easy way that I was able to remember these two quick keys is the P. There's the letter P and up. So that means up. And then obviously below that is down. So maybe a silly way to remember that, but that's how I've always remembered it. And now obviously it's muscle memory. So again, take the clip or the take that we want, Command C, that means copy. We'd bring it down, and I would bring it down to this verse. Let's say, assume this is the verse that a take for the verse. So I would hit that. Then I would do this. Like I said, this is a much slower version of what I would be doing. I'm just trying to explain. So then Control and the backslash is a new playlist, or you can do Control Option backslash and Control Command backslash. That will duplicate the playlist, which is what I like to do, just because I like to see what was there before and stuff like that. But it doesn't really make a difference, as long as I think you should always be saving your takes, because you never know when an artist is gonna be like, hey, I liked this one earlier take, but they maybe just didn't talk about it in session or bring it up. And then also it just helps you to find other takes, other words, other syllables, maybe even S's, to try to fix a take that you do like, but you don't like the word or the performance, or whatever the case is, and obviously the artist as well. So then I would hit new playlist and then continue recording, and let's get this next take. So boom, 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 we got the next take, Command, bring it down, and let's say we bring it here. So another thing too is obviously that kind of took a second to get there. So like I said, you don't need to like stick to this format stuff. Move stuff around, make sure that this makes sense for you. Another thing that I guess I could have brought up that I just didn't think about, because I'm used to working this way, is that I would probably bring this here, so it's a lot closer to where I need to bring my takes down. So yeah, move shit around if you need to. Don't just stick to this whole thing and stuff like that. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you're liking the video so far. So cool, we got our record track covered, our recording process covered. The next question is how I would bring down the takes and stuff. So let's just say I did this. Let's say this, we're doing a bunch of stacks, and I'm like, dang, I'm out of tracks. So to answer a question, yes, I would duplicate these. I would literally just take all these and duplicate them. Maybe I should have made 8 tracks to make it more recording standard, familiarity. Is that how you say the word? I don't know. So maybe I should have done 8 tracks or whatever, sticking with 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, 32, whatever. But yeah, basically if I obviously run out of tracks, then I need to duplicate tracks. So that's what I'll do. I'll highlight them, hit duplicate, boom, boom, and do that. And obviously in this case, I would uncheck active playlist, because I don't want how it just did. So let's say I did this. I can't undo. Interesting, really? Okay. So let me delete these then. Just to show an example, I just want to make sure I'm trying to answer all the questions. So if I do this, do duplicate in a real session, I would take this off and take this off. Because also, if you just do that, it'll start making your entire session bigger and bigger. Not that it matters anymore, but if for whatever reason you're super conscious about memory and stuff on your hard drive or computer, then make sure you're not duplicating playlist every time. And now, once we do that, boom, now we have empty tracks and we can keep continuing to work. Like I mentioned a second ago, if these were like doubles or something, then what I would do is bring these. Let's just say they were doubles. Let's say like, boom, got our takes. These are actually doubles. So for the workflow and for what makes sense for my template, I would do this. And obviously, in this case, because we have more than 4 takes, I would probably need to duplicate this. Like I said, this workflow is a little bit slower right now because I'm trying to go through it slowly. But obviously, for people who do work in sessions and stuff, know that the way you're thinking is a lot different and quicker and stuff. So that's what I would do. I would take it now. Also at the same time, you can see I'm being organized. I have all my lead tracks here. If we move on to the chorus, same thing as the leads. Then we start doing background vocals, harmonies, anything like that. And then let's say we did the chorus now, and artists wanted to add some harmonies. Then I would come down to my BGV section, and boom, now we have our BGVs in the BGV folder, being routed to the auxiliaries, stuff like that. So you can see that it's super organized, and yeah, that's that. So that's the recording question. Those were like pretty common questions about this, how I would add more tracks, and how I would start bringing tracks down to organize my session and stuff like that. Those were like the most basically asking the same questions just differently. And yeah, and then, like I said, and another thing too that I mentioned in the video, obviously if I'm recording a full band and stuff, I just personally think this doesn't work for me. I just or like this template and working with like, all right, now we recorded the drums, let me bring down the drums in the drum folder. Like, I just think when it comes to working with multiple people in one session, especially like a band, for instance, like I just like to record the whole song by takes. If I can convince the band to work that way, I just think that's better, in my opinion, which is obviously a personal preference. So I really don't. I'll work outside of my template, meaning like if I did this, let's say we did 8 tracks, and we have this, and then let's say we're recording drums today, and meaning people were confused what I meant working outside of my template. So this is literally what I mean, like not being routed to anything. All right, and then the next thing that I would say was probably the most common comment and DM was how I copy or let's say vocals, whatever the case is, whatever I want to affect. Because I made a separate video and I talked about it in my template, which was definitely like a hit video. Everybody enjoyed that, which I'm glad. Is how I take, let's say for instance, we wanted to do like a vocal throw. So let me sauce this up real quick. Let me record a little vocal thing. So let's say we did this. Let's get this next take. So, boom, boom, boom. So let's say we got this Migos ad lib, right? And they're like, yo, I want you to sauce it up. I'm like, all right, bet. Come down here. Wrong way. Boom, 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 boom. See, I'm using my quick key. See how I'm able to scroll through the session quickly? All right, so let's just say I wanted to do a reverb throw. I would take this, use our quick key, command copy, command paste is command V. So that was another thing too. They're like, why I can't copy my track onto there. And I guess I should have explained this too, which is something that I looked over, is that the only downside to working with the only downside to working with effect throws like this is you can see that they're stereo, because obviously we want to use stereo effects, and unless you're specifically trying to do a mono effect for depth or texture, whatever the case is, then you can totally do that. I just we have two speakers, and now we have more than two speakers that we're monitoring through when it comes to devices and stuff. So I'm gonna stick to stereo. Like I said, unless it's a specific idea or something, then I'll do mono. But yeah, you can see these are all stereo tracks. Obviously, we're recording with a mono track. So the workaround for that, and this is like, I guess it's a downside. I don't know. I'm used to doing it. I would have to basically do this, do this. Like, let's say this, we drop down our ad lib take, and artist loves it, but he wants it sauced up. So what I would do is, let me delete this so I can makes a little bit more sense. Boom, artist is like, yo, can you sauce that ad lib up? I'm like, all right, cool. So Command C, come down here, come down here. Now we have our stereo take, right? We have two of the same sources, takes. We've pasted them onto two mono tracks. So now when I hit, in this case, I'm going to do Command X, which is cut, because I don't want to see it anymore, because we don't need, multiple takes of the same thing. I do Command X or whatever that is in your DAW. If it's not the same, I just cut, get rid of it, but we still copied the take. Come up to our verb throw, and then now that allows us to do a stereo throw. Because like I said, we're using stereo effects. Yes, that's the workaround, and I guess the downside of that is that now, if I do this, let's say we did a new take, or let's do it in real time, boom, new take. Now when I do this, let's get this next take, boom, 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 boom. Now we have our effect. And another question on top of that is, let's say we did some processing on the track, because obviously all these are we're just monitoring through plugins how DAWs work. How pretty much any DAW works is that you're not actually affecting the original take or the original clip, audio clip, signal, whatever, with your plugins, which I guess makes a little bit of sense. There's a lot of new people that watch my channel stuff. So basically, how most DAWs, if not any DAW works, is that just because you're adding plugins onto a track does not mean that they are processing the track. It just means that you're sending your audio through those to be monitored through. So meaning, if you bypass the plugins, then obviously your effect is gone, right? So it's the same thing, because we're just monitoring through these plugins. Does not mean that let's say we did this. Let's say we did like a telephone effect, right? Show a good example. Why are we freezing? There we go. And we're gonna change this to this. We're gonna do this. Boom. Whatever. Yeah. Boom. So you can hear that we have made a telephone effect. Now, if I go here, do our little workaround trick, copy, go back up to here. If we solo this now, let me mute this. Let's get this next take. And let me bypass the plugins so we can hear that just because we made a telephone effect down here onto the original track does not mean that it's. Let's get this next take. Boom. You know what I mean? So yeah, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. It's more of just how DAWs work. It has nothing to do with specific to Pro Tools or recording process or anything like that. Yeah, so yes, I am basically, to answer the question, you are essentially copying and pasting the raw take to that. I don't have a problem with it. I understand that people want the processing to happen. If you do want the process to happen, at least in Pro Tools, right click, commit, bounce, whatever, and then it will obviously give you a committed take, and then you can work that way if you want the committed take. Obviously, if it's like a telephone effect, then yes, I would need to either copy the same settings onto this or commit the take so I can have that processing be affected by the reverb throw or delay throws or whatever. Then obviously in that case, you definitely need to do that. But typically, it's just the raw take that's being copied on. I don't see an issue with it because, like I said, it's just like a wet and dry knob, right? You're not you're just blending in the original signal into the throw. So like, let's say I wanted more of that reverb. So then I would, if you're in Pro Tools, Shift and Control up and down arrow key will expand the waveform. I like to do it this way because I like the incoming signal to be processed, not post fader. So instead of turning the fader up, you can see we're already at 0 anyway. I like to do that because it allows me to treat it like automation, and I like automation. I think I don't want my throws and stuff to be static. Maybe it can add a little bit of depth to a song and stuff like that. So I just like to, yeah, just affect all these different. If I need to turn up the overall, all, let's just say we have a bunch of throws and stuff throughout the session. If I need to turn all the effects up, then I would come down here. You can see I've given myself headroom, which I've explained why I do it this way in my video. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. Then I have flexibility to turn up the entire group because these are all being routed to an auxiliary. So yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. It's a little hard, I guess, to try to think about it in real time right now. But like I said, I know that there's a lot of new people that are not familiar with recording and how DAWs work and stuff. But essentially, yes, that's how I copy effects on here, and a little bit more in depth on how I would turn stuff up and affect those things. And let's see, there was one more. I think that was, oh, there was one more. I guess there was, do I record through my mix bus? And the question or the answer to that is no. I absolutely do not monitor through any of my mix bus stuff, any of these plugins. The only thing I want to monitor through is what I'm recording through, and obviously when I start bringing takes down, the actual individual tracks that I'm affecting. So yeah, I definitely don't do that. When it comes to mixing, I mentioned it. It depends on the song. These days, most of the time, at the very least, this will come on. So I want to just monitor through, and I don't want to be surprised by it. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to heavily rely on how these are affecting my entire mix, but when it comes to compression and saturation, I just think that if you set it and forget those things, then that will have less of an overall effect than, let's say, something like an EQ where you're like, I always add 10 dB to my mix bus of 16K and up or whatever the case is. Obviously, that's gonna change the way that you mix everything else because you already have added whatever the example I just said, 10 dB of 16K. So maybe now you're not going to do as much EQing because theoretically to your ears it already kind of sounds good. So when it comes to EQ, I don't do that. I used to. I'm sure there's a couple videos in the past that I've posted where I used to do that, but like I said, because of the way that I've realized that it's was affecting the way I was processing stuff individually, I was just like, I don't like working that way. And on top of that, when I make stems, and if for whatever reason they want the closest to possible, and sometimes I'll have to go through and individually make stems to get the processing of my mix bus. Yeah, once they hear, or once I hear those raw takes or whatever, or anything that wasn't on my mix bus being printed onto those stems, then it just sounds too different. I'm just, I don't like the idea of that. So, not recording through any of this stuff. When it comes to mixing, at a certain point, once I get my balance and stuff, I'm like, let's throw this compressor in, let's throw this EQ in, and yeah, that's the only thing that really stays on. And then my Mog and my Studer will come in maybe 75-80% through the mix. I had a question about the Varimu and how I use it. In the video I mentioned, and I have a mix bus video somewhere on my channel. I got a DM on Instagram like last week on how I would use it. I'm using the Tom Elmhurst preset. This is not built into UAD. This is something I took from the Manly video that he did maybe 2 years ago now. And he talks about his settings and stuff in that video. And I just try to mimic them as best as possible. And it's just a starting point. It doesn't work all the time, and I obviously need to adjust things for the song, but I've gotten so used to how this setup works that I think I've kind of nailed it, where if anything, I'm just adjusting the threshold. But yeah, the way I like to work, I just think this is one of those compressors where it's kind of you just set it, forget it kind of thing. That's the way I like to think about mix bus compression. Obviously, if it's not working for the song, don't just try to stick through it. Like, you need to adjust stuff. But I would say like 90% of the time, this is just messing with the threshold. And what's going to play a huge part is how you're individually processing all your stems and tracks and whatever to get to the final mix bus. So that's why I'm also trying to mention that I'm not heavily relying on the actual mix bus itself. to do all that because I just think it's more important to try to get your mix solid individually before relying on any overall stuff. So, um, yeah, those are all the questions that I had. It seems like everybody, like I said, enjoyed the video or the last like 3 or 4 videos that I've done, which is cool. So I appreciate everybody that watched all the videos and all this new subs. I got so many new subscribers. Like I said, I got like 100 plus like maybe followers on Instagram or something. So like I mentioned a few times in the video already, if you made it to the end, um, I will be giving away my template for free as a download. You can literally hit the link and download it. I'll find out how to do that, which I'm sure isn't hard. But in order to do that, for you to help me out, I would like to try to get to 2,000 subscribers and or not subscribers. Well, I would like to, but 2,000 followers on Instagram. I'm at like 1,300 right now. So if we can get there, I'll do it. If we do it quickly, maybe if we get to 1,500 quicker than I think I will, then um, maybe I'll just drop it early or whatever. Like I said, that's just my way of getting something out of it, and I think it's pretty easy. And I'll follow you back. I'm not gonna follow you back. I've been following everybody back and stuff. So, yeah, that's that. Don't forget to use my links. Safari pedals, Zounds. I think I've been saying Z sounds for the last year, and it's just Zounds. So if you need to buy any equipment and stuff like that, use Zounds. I personally use them. To be honest, the main reason is because I guess they have a location here in the Midwest or Chicago. So things when I order stuff, it gets to me like way quicker than it thinks. So that's why I like to use it. They're always super helpful, and they don't spam me with emails and stuff like that, which is nice. And yeah, they allowed me to be part of their affiliate program. So it would help me out if you bought stuff through there. Otherwise, um, yeah, use my Safari pedals, use my Waves link, and what else do I got? I got Sound ID. If anybody's interested in Sound ID, I still want to make a video on Sound ID because I do use it. I just don't know how to explain how to use it. But if it is something that somebody wants to see, because I've gotten a few times asking if I use any monitoring stuff, which I do use the headphones for the Sound ID. I would make a video on that, but yeah, if enough people want that, then I'll do that. But yeah, whatever. Use my links below. It would help me out a lot. Otherwise, like I said, like, share, subscribe. Check out my other videos. Follow me on Instagram. Even if it's not for the template, I'll follow you back. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Hopefully, I think this week I have a collab video coming out with a plugin video or plugin company. We'll see. But if you want to be notified, turn that notification bell on and like, share, subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.